Well, happy April, everyone. 2025.05 was just released the other day. So let's do our recap of all the changes in the release notes. We'll cover those off. Just a point of reference here. If you ever want to know where the release notes are, it's in Help Release Notes. It'll get you exactly the list of not only the changes in this release, but every release all the way back as far as we can go, I guess. Anyway, so there's quite a few here. Let's go through as many as we can, as fast as we can. Most of them are small little edge case things, but we'll cover them off. I'm going to start at the top because quite frankly, those are the ones that have been added longest, um, earlier than the most recent one. So let's just cover that off. Um, Alex added an optional status LED for controllers on the controllers tab. So that takes a little bit of setting up. So let me show you that. Here's your typical controllers tab. If you go to File, Preferences, go to the other tab, controller ping interval in seconds. So how many seconds do you want to like refresh a status LED? So let's say 5. Click OK. This should change. Oh, it's going to require a restart. So let me save. So there's a good point of reference here. Let me save that, close, and restart. Now this new feature is good if you are you have lots of FPPs and you are actively running them maybe throughout the year as opposed to during a show season, and you want to keep things more like a status page. It adds a status column here, red, green, green, showing that those devices are either offline or online. You can drag and drop and place it over here, for example. And now you have a live dashboard. And if you recall, we set this value to 5. So every 5 seconds, it will go out there and ping these devices to see if they're online or offline. So that's the purpose of that change. Add a pop-up menu to close gaps between effects. So this was a request. So I'll show you that. Animation, click done. Um, and I'm just going to drop in, let's go to yeah, we'll go here. This should be fine. Let me just drop in an on effect, pressing the letter O drops in an on effect. Now, if you highlight them, right click and alignment, we've got another option here that says close gap, and they will close them together. It's going to close them based on which one you click. I think it's first. So if I click this one, then this one, then this one, and right click alignment. Oh, it was not sure which one it went to. The last one, second last one. Um, yeah. So experiment with that. I know there's a reason for which one it collapses closest to it. I just can't recall from when it was done. Alternate nodes on the sphere option. This was a request from somebody. So if you have a sphere, I think I have one here. Yep, I do. It adds the option to do alternate nodes. And if you recall anything with the matrix and with icicles and such, that just means that you can skip nodes. So I should be able to show this. Let's see if I go and if I go close this. If I go here, if I go right click, node layout. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. You see that? So now if I click alternate nodes, this is how we see if it all works live, just like you, and go node layout. You see it goes 1, 2, 3, then comes back down 4, 5, goes to the next row, 6, skips 1, goes 7, skips 1, goes 8, comes back 9, 10. So for if you have a scenario where you need to skip every other node, that is now an option. I believe the user case was he had a fairly large globe and he wanted to make sure all the connections were at the bottom, I believe it was. Adjust save and save as tooltips to reflect render on save. So just a small change here. If you were to hover above the save, you're going to see save. But if you have the preference set to um, save on render, render on save, and oh dear, dear. It's been a while since I've done that. Sequences render on save. Click OK. Some users have this as an old legacy default, and now it says render all and save. So quite frankly, it's for us in the Zoom room. We can tell if you go up there and it says render on save, we're going to tell you, oh, you didn't need to render first because you've got it set there. So it's just a little warning tip, tool tip to let you know that you have that preference set. Um, Allow seconds and milliseconds on the timeline. I think I already have that set here. Let's go. You can't really see it because there's only seconds here. So I'm going to go to file sequence settings. I'm going to change it to, I guess that's 5 minutes. And you can see that it's actually only in seconds. So 300, 280, 240. If you highlight there, you're going to see seconds. The legacy is to show minutes and seconds. So sometimes it's helpful just to see seconds because, quite frankly, there's a lot of tools in the check sequence, etc., that really just shows the number of seconds. It doesn't show minutes and seconds, so it just saves you that hassle trying to figure it out. Anyway, that's under File Preferences, and I'm going to guess it's under Other, but I could be wrong. Nope. Effect grids, show alternate timing format right there. Sequence timer will be displayed in seconds and milliseconds. So that's the option there. Let me cancel it of that. Quite frankly, I've been leaving it at that seconds now. It seems to be more helpful for me. Submodel dialog, add ability to pad the front. And so Scott made this change. If I was to go to here and go to a submodel, click this and choose a submodel. Notice they're all 36, but what happens if you had one that was a little longer? I don't want to mess anything up, but I got 37. So you could right click and you can make them uniform row length, so bringing them all to 37. If you clicked on the original use case, I asked Scott about this and he wasn't sure, but he thought it was, it would use some mathematical formula and place the space somewhere in the middle. But anyway, he's added two specific options now. So this would add a placeholder in the front or add a placeholder in the rear. Now, technically, you might not need one in the rear because of the way xLights creates the render buffers, but it just makes it all nice and consistent. You know, you haven't messed up. So I'm going to click on pad front and you should see, unfortunately, I think we might want to update this value here, but you can see it has the comma. So that means there's actually a placeholder in front, making it 37. So these are all actually 37. And then why that's important is because when you have like a bars effect going across this submodel, you want it to hit all of these nodes in the right order. You don't want to go, this guy gets ahead of this guy. We have a case where the scenario is, let me draw here. There's a prop out there that is like an arrow like this, and it's a bad arrow, but it's a matrix. And if you don't put the spacers in there, and boy, that's a bad drawing, but you get the idea. It's going to hit this pixel, these pixels, and then it'll hit this pixel, and it'll hit this pixel, and it'll look weird as it comes across. So you need these placeholders. So now you have a right click option to do that. Maybe thoughts in the comments about whether or not we should include that value in here or something because it makes it easier to tell if you've got the right numbers. I'm thinking that might be something we want to do. Right, so close that and go back to the README. Colorize XYZ coordinates for the box screen location on the models. This is just a little convenience item. Click yes, I'm there. You can see we have a green for up, red for right, blue is coming at you. So if I go down to the size and location, if I scroll down, you've got the red is that value, the green and the blue. So just changing those colors there so you know if you want to move it to the right, you change the red value, that's the 368 value. Sometimes it gets a little confusing when you switching between different softwares as to what is the back to front value versus the up and down. So this just makes it a little easier. Just to uh, simple change there. Keith added a render progress dialog save position. So what that means, if I go a tools batch render, and it pops up out of my other screen. And if I do a batch render, I want to be careful here. I don't want to get too many. Select none. I'm just going to do two, hopefully. And click OK and discard those changes. So as it batch renders, you can click the green box here and it will bring up the progress dialog. And what it's going to do is going to save that position so that you don't have to resize it all the time. It'll remember that you have it set here. So if I make it there, whatever, next time you call this dialog, it's going to remember where it is. So it's more of a convenience item again on that change. Um, this one here, handle IPv6 proxy. There's a certain scenario, and quite frankly, it's my use case because it keeps happening to me, that if you have a controller, let's see if I can get back to, there we go. Go back to controllers. I have an F48 and I have a proxy. And if I put in the host name here, sometimes that resolves to a V6, which is a series of letters and characters. It's not your usual 192.168, etc. It couldn't handle that. So I couldn't use this proxy thing on my network and we couldn't solve how, couldn't figure out why it was doing it. But it was easy enough to make the change that if it returns an IPv6 value as opposed to this nice 192 number, xLights could handle it and talk to FPP accordingly. So that was it. And Dan made an update to the Queen Mary Vamp plugins. So if you remember on Queen Mary Vamp, if I go to Sequence, Create New, da da da, and if I go right click, add a timing track, you should have. Oh, I don't even have Queen Mary installed on mine. I get. Oh no, I don't have music, so that's probably why I don't have a choice there. But your Queen Mary vamp, it was sort of broken in the very latest Mac OSs. The Queen Mary wasn't being supported based on the new version of the Mac, so Mac users weren't able to make use of Queen Mary. Dan has found that they've released a new version that allows it to work, so he's made that available. So anybody who doesn't have Queen Mary on their latest Mac, you should be able to go and get that. Show state of effect render status in the pop menu. I think that is if I create an on group and if I want to do right click, I think I can do disable render. Notice how enable is no longer, you can't select it because it already is enabled. But if I click disable, you should be able to see that now it is enabled and disabled. So it gives you a quick view of what you want to flip it to. And you'll notice that the color will be different for a disabled choice. Mine may be different than yours, but so if I enable it, it's one color. If I disable it, it's another color. Add number effects to the left side of the import mapping. So this was, if you're a user that has, you want to go back and import effects, let me just drop a few in here. And you want to do import effects. Say you've got your sequence from last year and you want to go back and import something this year, but you're not starting from scratch. Let's go here, click OK. Yeah, there's a warning saying that this sequence was 20. So now it's going to have an extra column here that tells you you've already got effects on these particular props. Remember, I just put the on effect on a couple of props. So now you have a clue as to what you've already mapped, perhaps, or if you want to bring something over, if I drop the everything there, since there's already effects on there, you might be thinking you want to erase the previous ones because you're doing something over, or at least it's going to jog something in your memory and go, you know what? Why do I have effects there? Do I want to save them? Do I want to add to them? Or do you want to just overwrite them? If I click erase and click OK. And now before I do that, I want to show you another trick. If you do, this was added a couple of releases ago. If I just click on arches and go right click, auto map selected, it's going to look for a match just for this group. And it hopefully I found it. Should find the group in here somewhere. Is it going to work? Come on. Auto map selected. Uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, I think maybe because I got one selected there. I don't know. Hmm, what did I do wrong? Auto map selected. All right. I love doing these release videos because that's the way I can find things that are broken. So something is wrong there. It should have auto mapped. Like how would I click three? Auto map selected. Hmm. Interesting. All right. I'll make a note of that. Let's see what we can figure that one out. See if it's user error or if there is indeed an issue. Add left right text effect option. This was a request. Seems a little very small use case for it, but it's out there now. If I drop a text effect, text effect. Where are you hiding? You're right in front of me and I just don't see it. There it is. Drop it on the matrix because that's the easiest. Make it that, that, and drop in A, B, C, D. And I guess I have my white on it. Let me go back to the master view. I just want to make sure I get rid of this stuff here. So it's messing up my display. And go here. Go back to my matrix view. Remember that the master view is always the one that's used for rendering. This is just a convenience. These views are just for convenience. The order here is not important because the master view always controls the order. That's just a little side information. So anyway, so you have text, right? You obviously have an option to make it go left. You have an option to make it go right. Well, now you have an option at the bottom that says make it go left and then make it go right. And you want to obviously change the speed. But you also have an option now to make it up and then go down. So something a little different. And you can make it do no repeat, which means that it goes up, goes down, and stops. Well, it doesn't stop, but it doesn't repeat it. It just stays, does the the operation once. And if I do left and right, we should see it go left. We should see it go right, and then it stops. Now, obviously, it's going to repeat here as xLights will repeat this whole effect. But if I was to play it, you'd notice that it only shows that effect once. Um, this is Keith adding some new hardware, new pixel types. So that's there in the, yeah, I would assume that would be somewhere. It's going to be based on which controller you have, but I'm going to guess it's going to be somewhere down in the string properties. Mm, maybe protocol. Yeah, it's probably one of those new numbers down there. So if you need that, it's now there for you. Only enable media adjustment if media is actually found. So a new option that was added a couple of releases back was going to go to preferences, no, sequence settings, sorry. I need to make it a music one. Well, first of all, if it's animation, these options are now disabled, which is the correct way to do it. If I have media and I choose um, song, these options will now check to make sure that there is indeed audio in there and it allows them to be chosen. Okay, quite it's a simple one. Done. And fixed polygon. This one was a strange use case, and not sure I really want to demo it, but the SVG was a donut, right? Picture a donut. The SVG would only basically color the entire circle. It wouldn't do the center circle, so it didn't look like a donut. It looked like a circle. And that was considered a multi-path SVG. This is a second path. It wasn't honoring the second path. So now that it honors the second path, when it goes to color in the SVG, which is on the shape effect, it would honor that second path and show the correct SVG, and it would show up as a donut. So it's a special use case that was brought up with an SVG. Um, Tweak preference panes for smaller screens. One of the issues we've had for quite a while, frankly, especially well, it'll be only on the Mac, on the Windows side because Mac uses a different layout here. This OK and cancel button would be too far off the bottom for smaller screens like laptops, and you wouldn't be able to get to the OK and cancel, or if there was any other options. I'm not sure if there is, but any other options, they would drop off the bottom and you wouldn't be able to get to the OK and cancel. So a little tweak there to make that. So that works. Fix popularity when searching for models. A feature that was added last release, and we were playing around with it, and I noticed something when I did the release video. So you're sitting in here and you do a Control F, and I want to search for G. It would get to the first group, but it wouldn't actually highlight it. So now it actually highlights it and selects it over here on the right. So that's what we sort of expected with that, and that's been corrected. So that works there. That was Alex did that. Fix some problems with fade in and out of audio. That's actually going back to the thing we were just looking at. There was some issues with oh, I'm in the preferences again. File, sequence settings. There was some issues in the resulting values when you did It's oh no, it's not this. It's where does that thing? There was a program that you could use to update your audio. That must have been a different tool. File. It was used a few years ago on xLights around the world where they wanted to cut out pieces of the song, but they didn't want to provide you the actual song. They provided you with uh, with a script. I think it was called an REP script. And gosh darn it, it's prepare audio. Yeah, Reaper files. So, uh, if you had an audio track that you want to maybe make a mashup or something, where you don't want to provide the actual mashup, but you say, use these three songs and use this REP, this Reaper file, it would edit those audio for you and resulting in a MP3 that you could use without the sequence vendors having to actually send you, quote, illegally the the edited version. There was a way to do it in Reaper. I believe it's something that's sort of taken from Audacity and the Audacity library. So again, another little bit of an edge case there, but it's available. I don't know. Right here. Fix settings not properly reflected after a bulk edit. So in the sequencer, if you had I think it was the example was I think it was a single strand effect. No. Wave effect? I don't think it really matters. But what what was happening is if you bulk edited some setting here that changed some rules up here, they wouldn't get reflected with the change. So let me see if I can see if I can find out which one it was that was really doing that. Morph, no, pictures. Well, maybe even this one. If you were to say change suppress GIF background, if you bulk edited that, it wouldn't update this value, this screen. This panel was not being updated. So, and now it's being updated, so it reflects the result of the bulk edit. I think Martin and the guys are working with ePixel sticks. They were having issues with timeouts and uploading, so they're still working on that. I think they've got it fixed now, where it would time out or the zip files would be corrupt or something on their uploads. So it's very specific to the ES Pixel sticks. Fix some crashes with the video effect. This was catching a few people earlier on in the release, so we addressed that. There was another edge case with the pinwheel effect that was crashing. Somebody brought in a edge case for that one, and that was solved. F48. So in the controller tab, we're leaning back to using the Discover button. Problem with the Discover button on an F48, the original F48, if you did a Discover on that, it would try to add it back as an F48 V3, but in fact, xLights considers it just to be an F48. If I go to models, you see it sort of breaks the rules. F16 had a V2, V3, V4, V5, V4, V5, but F48 never really was called a V3. It was just called an F48. So when it discovered it, it would put an F48 V3, and that was incorrect. So just a little one-liner change that says, hey, that's not really a V3, it's just an F48. Um, Alt nodes on the display node on the layout. I believe that was on a single line prop, but I think could be able to explain it here on let's go to master view. I need to find something like a single line. Um this one might be a single line. Let me go on effect. Yeah, looks like a single line to me. And I go right click. Oh, we want to do the layout, sorry. Jumping around here. So there's a single line, right click, no layout. Now, if this was alternating nodes, it wouldn't honor it. It would show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But in fact, it should show 1, skip 1, 3, etc. So that was corrected. It was only for, I believe it was only for the single line effects, very small. Dan is working on, we've had some crashes with when you move around things on the controller tab specifically. Now, I think it actually broke it on the Windows, but let's test. If I go to my FPP and if I click on this guy and put it back to blank. So I'm going to click here. Now, most people would just hit the drop down, but you should be able to hit the letter F, for example. Oh, and it pulls the very first F. Did it crash? No, it didn't crash. So I think that's good. So anyway, on the Mac side, it would crash and hang um, on hitting a letter here. So I'm going to click on M. It pulls up the first one in the list. Oh, there's a crash. Woo, there we go. So it's broken, or it's just very slow. Okay, it didn't crash, but that's good. Oh, yes, it did. It disappeared in the background. So fixed on Mac, now it's crashing on Windows. I hate that. Maybe we'll have to put an exception in there. Dan, put an exception. Put back the old code for Windows because it worked. Let me restart xLights while we're waiting. Um, that's a problem when you're coding for two different, or quite frankly, three OSs. What works on one OS may break on another, etc. So it is challenging. A little bit of cat and mouse. Um, all right, fix it. Abort render if effects move to prevent crashes. This is one that was brought up before. If you, I think, I think it was Ron who brought this up. It's still not perfect, but if you have a large layout with lots of effects on wait, a bunch of those. It when you click on something, it kicks off a render in the background. I'm not sure if you're going to pick it up or not, but you'd see, maybe on effects probably not going to show, but it's rendering in the background. So what happens if you click on this one and you move it down? It basically kicks off another render, and eventually either this guy stops moving or it hangs up and crashes. So what we've done now is says if you're moving an effect, stop that background render, and then, of course, once you've landed on your new spot, then it kicks off a new render. So it's just going to clean up, then allow the move, and then move it down. It's really painful, and it still is painful if you have a bunch of shaders because those shaders are little like mini programs. So if you have 10 shaders, it's got to compile those 10 little mini programs before it's going to let you move things around. But I believe it only compiles them once for your sequence. So once that initial pane is done, you should be able to move things around. The older way to do this, or the other way to do this if you're doing lots of changes, is to suspend your render so it doesn't kick off that background render as you're moving things around. If you're going to move lots of things around, say you want to highlight a whole bunch of groups, a whole bunch of effects, and you want to move them all around, that might be a good time to do the suspend render so that all the other effects don't get kicked off to re-render as you're moving things around or you're making little minor adjustments. So I can't say it's perfect, but it seems to be very helpful now that it does abort that little background render that takes place for you on your behalf, so that you're less likely to hang up there. Fix crash on effects with empty groups. Don't add render jobs for model groups with no nodes. We're finding a few edge cases here. Um, and this is almost like a performance issue as well. If you had a group, especially if you did a group and maybe you've removed those props because they're Christmas props and you have your Halloween display and you didn't take out the group because maybe you still want it or whatever, or maybe you have a placeholder group. Maybe you've got a group that is for future. Maybe you want to have a group of spinners and you don't have any spinners yet. You created the group just so you can map to it. Um, the code behind it now will say, okay, there's nothing in there, so I'm not going to waste my time going through all the code and then cleaning up and perhaps causing the crash. Dan f found this one for me just the other day. I have an everything group, but I had one model that is inactive. And I think it's this guy here. I'm just off the top of my head. I think it was this one here because I'm no longer using that in my display. But that was causing a crash because it was calculating some weird thing in the background and it was causing an exception. So he found that one. So as people start to decommission some props and put them in the background, i.e., marking them as inactive, you may be running into that as well. So let me just, I'm pretty sure that's the one. Maybe my production. So that's under appearance, I believe. Yeah. So active versus inactive. So there you go. So that was a case that when I was trying to validate this release before it went production, I was having a crash and we found that. Crashing emoji effects. This was an old legacy bug where he had a colored emoji, um, but he had it placed on a single line render style. So if you think about the everything group, we normally pictured it as a big grid, right? So if I was to draw this, when it draws an effect on here, it essentially is drawing a big matrix on here. And it's putting in this case, it was an emoji, let's call it it was a happy face. It would try to draw the happy face on here. I know this looks kind of funny, but hey, it's kind of neat. This is how you normally would think that the emoji should be placed on your everything group. But in this scenario, the person had, let me go back here in the layout, and I don't know why he did, but maybe it was just playing around. Everything group, he had it set to minimal grid, which is what I was just showing you. He had it set up as a single line. So what that means is this entire group of pixels is treated as one big single line. So annotate, and so think of it as one big single line of pixels, and obviously my everything group, so there's what, 30,000 pixels? I don't know how many I have. Whatever, 30,000 and one more zero. And then it tries to draw an emoji on there. Well, it's 1 pixel high, 30,000 wide. That just blew up. It would crash the system because it can't draw the emoji there. So, really weird edge case, probably not practical in your show, but it was just a case of him having this setting here and the emoji effect couldn't paste on an image on to a buffer. That's called the buffer where it shows up like that, and it would crash the system. So we thought it was originally something in WX widgets, and maybe it was originally, but the true fix was the render style and making sure that people don't make little mistakes like that cause unexpected results and hence crashes. That is it for 2505. Um, Again, pretty rock solid. We haven't had too many crashes. Some of the early crashes I think we've addressed way back here. And yeah, I think we're good. If you have any concerns or comments, be sure and leave them in the comments below. Remember, if you have an issue, go to the issue tracker. Ideally, you're going to do a tools package sequence. You don't need to provide us an entire sequence, especially if it's purchased. Do not send us a packaged purchase sequence. But if you can recreate it with a couple of effects, or you know, I think a vendor might be okay if you just created a new sequence and pulled in just the one model so that it replicates the scenario that you're trying to duplicate it. Because then, quite frankly, we can just go through our debugger and find out what's going wrong. It's much easier to track down. Screenshots are nice, but nothing beats a good old sequence or simplified case. And that's how we solved this one that Dan did for me the other day. I narrowed it right down to one model and 5 effects, and it was just makes it so much easier to troubleshoot. Anyway, there's your release notes for April, and I guess it's showtime, guys. So see you at the minis. Bye now.